Today I'm going to be going over this ESC setup I pulled up for my Kayak. I'm not going to be using it this year because I upgraded to a brushless trolling motor. So ESC stands for Electronic Speed Controller, and it provides a stepless motor speed adjustment just like those Amazon PWMs do. This particular ESC is the Quick Run 880 dual motor output from HobbyWing. So you can see it right there. Very small. And it's rated for a 4S battery. So in the RC world, a 4S battery means it is up to 14.8 volts, which is perfect for the lithium iron oxide batteries most people use these days for their trolling motors. If you happen to get one that is 3S, you're going to likely burn up your ESC. So whatever ESC you get, make sure it's 4S capable. I just suggest getting the HobbyWing 880 and you won't have any issues. So what are some of the advantages of this particular ESC setup over, say, an Amazon PWM that most people use? Well, the first and most obvious is the size. It's very small. I actually have an Amazon PWM here that we can compare it to. So you can see the size difference is pretty dramatic. This uses more solid state components, so it can be a little bit smaller. This one uses more standard components, like uses standard relays to switch polarity. But this is all solid state. The other advantage is this thing is waterproof, 100% waterproof. It's also simple to wire for a remote. There's only 5 wires total, and I'll go over those connections in a little bit. And you can also use this with a wireless remote. Most people I've seen use skateboard remotes, and I've actually tried it with a skateboard remote, and it works okay. Except the throttle on those are spring loaded and has like a push button cruise control. I only used it a couple times and I really didn't like it, so I went to a wired one, which I'll go over later. All right, let's go over the connections on this thing. So you've got your most obvious is the battery. It has a standard red and black positive and negative connection. And I used XT90 pigtails and heat shrink butt connectors for everything. So the next one is the motor output. And this particular 880 from a HobbyWing is set up for a dual motor output. This is originally used on an RC truck that has all-wheel drive. So it has 2 motor outputs. And what we do is we combine them into one for each leg. So for the positive, the output is 2 yellows, right? So combine the 2 yellows and just combine them into one of the pigtail ends for the positive. And then you do the same thing for the negative. The negative is blue. Combine the 2 negative outputs into one black on the pigtail. And that's it. So the next connection, I have this connected up to my remote. I use some servo extension plugs. And you have your servo connection. So this, I'm just remoting this up through a cable up to my remote, and this plugs into a servo tester inside the remote. And then there's also the on-off switch. Normally when this comes out of the box, there's a small switch wired in here on a short wire. I just cut the switch off and I wired it up to a switch in the remote. This is really handy because if your motor ever shuts down because of, goes through gunk or weeds or whatever, and you have to reset it, you're gonna have to get out and go to wherever your ESC is and use that little switch. So I just moved it up here, and you can just reset it at any time, and this actually shuts off the power to the motor. So this is highly recommended. So the final connection, there's a 3-pin port right here, and that's for the programming device. You can also power the fan off it, and that's how I have it hooked up right now. And that's pretty much it for the connections. It's really not that complicated. So that 3-pin connection that I showed you just a little while ago, you can use that for the fan, but its primary purpose is to program the ESC. And you need to get a device like this. This is a programming device. And it connects up to your ESC with a standard servo extension plug. It comes with a little short one like this. So basically you plug it in to the device, and then you plug it into your ESC, just like that. And then when the ESC is powered up, this will turn on and you can set various adjustment settings. And there are 2 settings that I highly recommend that you change, and one is actually critical. The first one that's critical is the running mode. So when you get your ESC, it comes with a instruction manual, and there's a table of all the settings you can program it with. And the very first one is the running mode. And the little black highlights are the default values. So you want to change the running mode to value 3, and that puts it into forward and reverse only. If you leave it at the default with the brake, your reverse is not going to work. It'll work, but you have to like fiddle with it to get it to work. So you definitely need to put the running mode in option 3. The other thing you want to change from default is the neutral range. And you want to set that just a little bit higher than stock. You might want to set it to, let me see, option 5 or 6. And that just makes finding the center neutral zone where the motor is off a little bit easier. One of the cool things about this versus an Amazon PWM is you can use several kinds of remotes. You can use a wired remote like I made here. You can also use a radio frequency remote. And a lot of people use skateboard remotes, and they have a spring loaded throttle you have to hold, and then there's a push button for a cruise control. And that's a real easy setup to get going with. It's basically plug and play. You simply plug in the receiver, pair it to the remote, and you're good to go. I found the skateboard remote was cumbersome to use. And basically it's because of the spring-loaded throttle and the cruise control. It was just cumbersome. So I made this really nice wired remote. I'll put all the links for the parts in the description for this. But basically I mounted a Servo Tester board in here, and I used low voltage landscape lighting wires. And you can get these on Amazon, and you can get pigtails and long extension cords. And these long extension cords work great for running through the hull, and then you can just plug everything in, and these connectors are waterproof with an O-ring. And so I have that just goes down. The extension cable goes to another pigtail, and that gets wired into the on-off switch and the servo connection. And I'll put a little link up here to what this looks like inside. It's essentially the 5 wires, and they come up, and the 2 go to the switch, and the 3 go to the servo connection. And then I desoldered the stock potentiometer that comes on the Servo Tester, and I wired in a better one, which looks like this. So this is a 10K pot. I got this from Mauser Electronics, and it has a center detent. And so that's the same one that's in here. And that center detent, you can feel it when it hits the center position right there. So the center position, the motor is off. That's the neutral. And that setting I mentioned in the programming device, that makes the range a little bit wider. So if you don't have the center detent, you want to set it a little bit wider so it's easy to find the off position. And then you simply go left for reverse and right for forward. There's no switching between forward, neutral, and reverse like on an Amazon PWM. This is a lot more convenient to use than those PWMs, by far. So that's pretty much it, folks. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments, and I'll try and answer them the best I can. If I missed anything, let me know, or if I got something wrong, let me know. And that's it, Bassman out.
Thanks for watching Bassman Strikes Kayak Fishing. If you like this video, please click the subscribe and like buttons. If you'd like to be notified of new content, click the bell button. If you have any questions about lures, equipment, etc., please leave a comment. Also, be sure to check out our Facebook page and join our group Black Bass Central. Links will be in the description. We'll see you next time.